When we were in those really early days, I was literally writing press releases and headlines that I wanted to see published about Lovely, and then working backwards and figuring out
how do we
make that happen. It just takes somebody who got enough audacity. We were doing things differently. I mean, the first label we ever put on our branded jars was You Lovely F***er.
I love it.
I thought I was having a heart attack.
Wow.
And I felt like I couldn't breathe, and I literally collapsed in a heap on the floor. I managed to walk out of the bedroom to the bottom of the stairs to call up to my husband, and I said to him, "You have to call an ambulance. I'm having a heart attack. I think I'm going to die."
Oh my God. Hi, Potty Fam. I'm Jane Liu, your host of the Lazy CEO podcast, where we talk all things business and personal development with some of the biggest trailblazers of the world today. I am chatting with the amazing Hannah Spilva, the co-founder of Lovely. So I think it's pretty safe to say that everyone listening has either received, sent, or seen a co-worker received a bunch of gorgeous, lovely flowers and gift package. So Lovely started 8 years ago, and not only has it become a household name here in Australia, but has also now become a global business, which is no easy feat when you're doing same-day delivery of fresh flowers. So keen to understand how that even works. So Hannah's recently also sold that business for a valuation of $35 million, which is huge. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And now she sits on the board of Lovely and is diving right back in with two new startups in the world of beauty and self-care. So with Buff Nail Studios and also Done, which is an at-home hair color product. I'm like, what's the word? Okay, all right, let's get into it. Thank you for joining me. You've flown up from Melbourne.
Such a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You brought the weather with you. Thanks.
I know. Apologies, guys. I feel right at home, though. That's the nice thing. Particularly being a Brit, so it's kind of like wherever I go, I'm used to the
you're
rain.
acclimatized. Anyway, I won't start the podcast with talking about the weather because we have a million things to talk about. Like, I can do better than that. But do you remember we actually met, I can't remember where we met.
You were in Melbourne.
And I think you were kind of in a rush to leave where we were.
It was at an Amex event, I think.
That's right.
Or it was sponsored by Amex, maybe celebrating International Women's Day, I think. And there were a few of us there. That was the first time I met you.
Yeah. Tell me, let's your whole journey start.
That is a big question to start with. So let me try and break it down. So I'm from the UK is what I'll start with, right? So I moved to Australia.
You have an Emily Blunt accent.
Oh, do you sing?
Yeah, it's so nice and posh. You can be like, I don't know. And you sound like you know what you're talking about.
I love that. I get a lot of people thinking I'm from New Zealand these days, actually, which is weird. And I think it's because I've got this weird mashup of British, Australian. I'm not really sure what's going on. But anyway, yeah. So I'm from the UK. I've spent 14 years now here in Australia. But really, I think I kind of have to go back as far as probably being around 14 years old to really kind of pinpoint where I think and where I remember this kind of business journey really starting. And as a 14-year-old girl, I distinctly remember there being three things that I wanted to do. The first was get married by the time I was 25.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because at 25
cue the giggles old. Like every 14-year-old girls, right?
Yeah.
So I was going to get married by the time I was 25. I was going to move to Australia and I was going to start my own business. And they were the three things from 14 years old that I was really intent on doing.
Talk about manifestation. I was starting to think about underage drinking at 14 and Caitlin just turned 14 this year.
Was still into the underage drinking and all of the things that come with that. But really, I just distinctly remember having this very clear ambition of trying to achieve these three things. And I guess I look back now and I think, God, maybe that was actually my earliest sort of experience of manifestation or, life by design, whatever you want to call it, goal setting, same thing, different label. But I had these three things that I wanted to do, all of which I achieved. But it's also a lesson in be careful what you wish for, because I got married at 25. I also got divorced by 30. And I got remarried again in my mid-30s. So they were three things that I was really dead set on doing. And I really spent, I think, the latter part of my teens and my early 20s making a lot of decisions based, particularly career decisions, on achieving these things. So sort of jump-started my career in the world of advertising. I've always been a very creative person, and I was just completely kind of magnetized towards the advertising and creative industry. So I sort of cut my teeth coming out of university working for an agency called McKenna Erickson, and I specifically chose an agency that was part of a global network, because I thought if I work hard enough and I do well enough, eventually I'm going to ask them if I can get a transfer to one of their offices in Sydney. So I was super strategic about, even back then in my early 20s, the career path I was choosing, I was always trying to figure out a way, like a path, right?
So I was an accountant working for a Big Four accounting firm because I wanted to go on secondment to London.
So same, right? So we weren't that different.
Yeah.
So that was always kind of, part of the big picture for me, was getting over here to Australia, which I did in my mid-20s. And I'd always had this burning desire to start my own business. I think partly because I grew up watching my dad on this kind of entrepreneurial journey. But I think
what did he do?
So my dad has run many businesses in his life, some of which have been great successes, some of which have been huge failures. Now, for me, I think what was interesting growing up was it wasn't like I was just seeing the shiny, exciting, successful side of entrepreneurship. I was seeing a lot of the downsides, a lot of the doing it tough, a lot of the losing money, a lot of the things not necessarily working.
The emotional stress,
the bringing it home, the pressure it was putting on my mum, the pressure it was putting on my family. It's not like I had this kind of glossy Instagram view of what...
Oh, the TikTok. I just did. My business exploded in a month. Look at all the labels I'm printing.
I knew it wasn't going to be like that. But there was something that still really, really compelled me towards running my own business. I just never knew what it was going to be. I was living in Sydney at the time, working for an agency over here, and I was super homesick. I was kind of at this milestone of maybe considering moving back to the UK, missing my mum and my sisters terribly. I'm very close to my two sisters. And I was looking for ways to kind of let them know that I was missing them, thinking of them, just something small that I could send them, affordable, cute. And there was clearly a huge bloody gap in the market. The kind of stuff that I was finding online was Interflora and, a whole raft of kind of what I would call old school brands whose product range hadn't really developed. There was nothing that was on trend. There was a lot of stuff that was super overpriced. And it was really clear there was a gap.
Like kind of like the gift shop outside a hospital.
Yeah.
It's like token, but it's not nice.
Totally.
Right?
It's like if you're really desperate.
Yeah.
And you've got to make a decision or a purchase today, there's this. But I just kind of thought, that's not good enough.
We can do better.
We can do better than this, guys. Come on. This was... Well, we're actually coming up to Lovely's 10-year anniversary. So this was like 2014.
Oh, yes. You sold the business 2 years ago when it was 8.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I sold the business at 8 years old. So we're in 2014. And that was when this sort of idea came together for Lovely. And I initially took the leap of faith. And for me, I think the business came from that place of wanting to be a brand that would connect loved ones, spread some joy in the world, be that sunshine in somebody's day that's maybe, full of grey clouds, but really kind of almost being that brand that's a cheerleader for people and spreading some happiness in a world where increasingly there's a lot of misery and suffering. And so flowers really became the facilitator for that brand purpose. It was never really about flowers. It's not like I had a background in floristry. I knew very little about flowers at the time, and I knew absolutely nothing about logistics. I didn't even consider the fact that we were building a logistics company. That came later. That was a real oh shit moment.
Yeah. Maybe it's a good thing, because if you really knew, you'd be like, that's too hard.
100%. It's the classic case of kind of ignorance was bliss in that context. So that's where Lovely kind of finally came about, in this moment of missing family and seeing an opportunity to be a brand that connect people, not just in the good times, but the bad times, the hard times, or sometimes in the times where there's no reason at all other than to say like, I love you.
Love that. And so what then are the first 5 steps you took?
Step 1, I think... Step 1.
Google
how do you start a business? Step 1 was really a creative process that took place over, months and months, which
was... For
the
brand?
Yeah, which was just... The step 1 is really talking to people and getting the idea, circulating the idea, bouncing with friends and loved ones and people you trust to make sure that this isn't just you. Like, is this actually a good idea? Is this actually a thing people will need and use?
If people are like just being like, oh yeah, great. And if it's like a genuine, because it's easy just to agree with someone, right?
Well, 100%. It's easy to be surrounded by cheerleaders.
Yeah.
But you kind of like really have to kind of
dig deep.
Yeah, dig deep. But I think for us, because we launched with such an MVP product, like minimum viable product, like we look back and we're like, we cringe. We're like, oh my God, did we actually launch that into the world like that?
Do you have a photo of it?
We do. If you go back far enough on our Instagram feed. The reason that's great is because it allows you to very quickly find out, actually, is there a product market fit for what you're doing? Or actually, are you a bit delusional because you're surrounded by people who adore you and are your cheerleaders and are just kind of egging you on? And so I think for us very quickly, because we put something out there into the world, which was by no means perfect, but it did allow us to understand, like, are people that don't know us going to buy this? Like, are we filling a genuine gap? And we identified that pretty quickly.
And then what did you do?
Then we did everything. We went to floristry night school to learn how to make basic arrangements.
Because you were making the flowers yourself, right?
We were doing everything ourselves.
Yeah.
So sorry, step 2 is probably like quit your day job. So there's like, there's a resignation in there somewhere, which is like, okay, I'm actually going to go into this. Yeah, 4
and
weeks
you saved
notice.
up some money by this point.
So at this point, I'm basically using all of the savings that I have access to, plus a loan from my dad. I didn't repay till 8 years later when we sold the business. And so we go to night school. We learn how to make basic flower arrangements. We set up this business literally in the kitchen. So we're making the flowers. We built the website in Squarespace. We set up our own photo shoot. I got my husband's sister. He wasn't my husband at the time, actually, but I got my sister-in-law to come and be the photographer. So we were creating our own content to populate the website. We were doing Facebook campaigns. We were writing our own press releases. So I have this piece of advice which I often give to people, which is write your headline, then make it true.
Yeah, I love that.
When we were in those really early days, I was literally writing press releases and headlines that I wanted to see published about Lovely, and then working backwards and figuring out, like, how do we make that happen? A lot of, I guess, the execution of how we made those headlines happen was through collaborations. So working with other brands that were on trend, that maybe had a bit of a larger following than we did at the time, but finding a really meaningful way to connect with them.
Yeah. Your thank you collaboration.
So our thank you collaboration was the first one we ever did.
Thank you. And love Daniel and Justine. Amazing.
Yeah, they're amazing. They're an incredible couple. And that was the first brand that we did a collaboration with back in 2014 when we were nobody. But they loved what we were doing. We were literally doing everything, making the flowers. We were delivering the flowers.
Oh, yeah,
we were driving around in our own cars because we couldn't get anybody. Oh my goodness. So looking back, it's so funny. We were laughed out of the meeting rooms of every logistics provider in Australia because you've got these two chicks with this vision, which it sounds kind of cute to blokes. We weren't taken very seriously. People didn't really think there was going to be a lot in the idea. And so nobody would deliver our products for us because for us, same day was non-negotiable, even though it wasn't a big thing here in Australia at the time. But I could see very clearly in the UK that same day delivery, like, it was coming for us. So you were either going to be an early adopter and jump on board and figure it out, or you were going to be a retailer who was pretty screwed trying to figure out, like, how to keep up with the competition. Nobody wanted to deliver same day though. They didn't know how to make it happen. And also we had a perishable product, which was really fragile. And we were sending out flowers in glass jars with water in them at the time. So people were just like, guys, you're on your own. This is madness.
And so delivering it yourself, how did you know it could be economical? Because you're going out to, was it broader Sydney?
Yeah.
When we launched same day shipping, we did a campaign. We did it with like another company.
Yeah.
But as a campaign, I rented a van, put Shopo decal on it, and then we drove to 3 places to deliver. And to pick up the van and to go to those 3 places took me all day.
Yeah.
And we went to Macca's on the way. But we only delivered 3 things. That's not economical.
It's not economical. So I think the answer to your question is we didn't know it was going to be economical, but that was all part of the figuring it out. The figuring it out was like, well, okay, so if nobody's going to do this for us, we'll do it ourselves and we'll figure it out.
We'll get the scale before then we can.
100%. We knew we were going to lose money on delivery before we were ever going to make money on delivery.
How did you know where to price it if you knew you were?
We didn't. We got it wrong. We got everything wrong. We got our pricing strategy completely wrong. We were going backwards financially. We weren't charging enough for our flowers. We didn't put proper budget constraints in place for the product that was going into our arrangements. We were probably selling our arrangements for what they were costing us. We were losing money on delivery, but you don't know what you don't know until you make some mistakes and then you figure out how to do things better. But I think back then we weren't too worried about what we didn't know. We were just worried about like getting this brand and this business and this product out into the world and figuring it all out.
So when did you go, okay, we're onto something?
I think probably it took us, it was probably 12, 18 months of having the product out in market when we started getting a lot of traction with kind of editorial people. I remember Broadsheet publishing their first article about us, and it was because we had collaborated with Shortstop Donuts, and I'd pitched them this article about donuts on demand because donuts were trending at the time. I mean, not that donuts have ever really been out of fashion. I'm a massive donut lover. They're my guilty pleasure, but there was definitely a moment in time, like around 2015, where donuts were like the coolest fucking thing going, right?
Yeah.
And so I jumped on that opportunity, pitched to Shortstop Donuts that we would collaborate with them. We would deliver they didn't have delivery in place at the time. We would be their delivery partner. We would sell their donuts with our flowers. Before Shortstop had even agreed to do it, I'd pitched to Broadsheet the article around donuts on demand, donuts delivered to your door. And like they picked it up immediately. Oh, this is incredible. People are going to love this. And so in the space of 3 days, we literally got this collaboration up and Lovely was delivering donuts.
God. That's genius.
When nobody else was doing it. And they couldn't say no, right? So it was like a win-win-win for everybody. It was a win for Shortstop. It was a win for us. It was a win for Sydney Siders and, Melbourneites who just love donuts. And so we just built momentum very, very quickly from taking leaps of faith, jumping on opportunities, and I think being quite smart with collaborations.
Wow. Okay. Incredible. It's genius. So how did you know if you're the right person to do it? Because I do see, when I'm doing Shark Tank, sometimes I'm like, yes, this opportunity exists, but the entrepreneur might not be the right person. I think about the fact that like the person who started Uber was the CEO before he got kicked out. People could have the idea to start Uber, but they're not necessarily going to be the person that takes it to that next level. How did you know that you could do it?
The clearest sign of whether you're the right person or not is, are you getting traction with this idea? Because there are a lot of great ideas out there with maybe the wrong person at the front kind of steering the ship. What was clear was there are pretty low barriers to entry, right, to selling flowers online. And in fact, to any online business now, like it's pretty easy to start a business. It's very, very hard to make it work and to scale it. What was clear to us was, although the barriers to entry were pretty low, we were clearly getting a lot more traction with our business and our brand than others were at the time. That's really because we were the right founders to drive that business forward. So there's this idea called the Audacity Principle. It's got its roots in the military background. And really what it speaks to is this idea that often if you are just bold enough and decisive enough to take action when others aren't, you are likely to achieve very favorable outcomes. So often, like they apply the Audacity Principle to the reason why, it can be attributed to victory in battle, for example, because oftentimes it just takes somebody who has got enough audacity to do something and do something differently and just put those ideas and practices into motion. And I think we were really unafraid of being disruptive. I'm quite rebellious by nature. It's just sort of who I am as a person. And I think we were doing things differently. I mean, the first label we ever put on our branded jars was "You Lovely
I love it.
I think there was an irreverence about what we were doing. We were just doing it differently to others. And because we were doing it differently, we had a much higher chance of succeeding. And our commitment to achieving our goals and my conviction was just immense. And is still absolutely unwavering.
I think business is a bit of a confidence game. If you can keep backing yourself when you have those obstacles to be like, okay, no, sorry, we'll figure it out. You can tell from everything everything that you've been saying?
I think sometimes it's just you've got to be really confident in making decisions. I am incredibly unafraid of making decisions. In fact, I love making decisions.
I find it harder now with a bigger business and more riding on it to make those decisions. As opposed to when you're smaller, you're like,
for sure, because you've got so much more to lose, right?
Yeah.
But I think also as your business grows and as you level up as a leader, you also have more guardrails around you.
That's right.
To help you make the right decisions, whether that's just the fact that you're more experienced and you can't be successful without having had a bunch of failures behind you, and you learn a lot from failure, right? So, as your business grows and evolves, you're more experienced. You've probably got an advisory board in place. We had an advisory board in place. So there's more to risk, there's more to lose. If you're doing it right and you're doing it well, you have a bigger support ecosystem around you to try and keep you and the business on track.
Well, my husband makes me write business cases for everything, so that helps. Okay, so tell me, then let's go down the timeline. What were the biggest milestones for growth? Did you always start with the jars? Because I feel like that's what really, me as a consumer, set you guys apart and made you so memorable. Was that from the start, or did you see a step change when you introduced those?
So we did jars from the start, but it wasn't like it was some grand idea or USP that we thought was going to, set the business apart from others. In fact, I remember going over to my co-founder's house at the time, and we both had we were trying to figure out what our packaging would be. Back in the day, everybody was wrapping their flowers in this like brown Hessian wrap, which had a quite sort of organic feel to it, and we wanted to be different. And so the plan was we'd meet on a Sunday morning, we'd bring a load of different materials with us, and we'd basically have a bit of a like arts and crafts session of figuring out what wraps we were going to use, how this arrangement was going to come together, and what our aesthetic was going to be. And I literally remember I was hungover. I'd been out the night before with my boyfriend, and I was literally going through the kitchen cupboards, grabbing random stuff and chucking them in this bag to take over to my girlfriend's house to basically have this like discovery session. And I happened to pull out from one of my kitchen cabinets a bunch of kind of cute little jars which I'd bought from IKEA, chucked them in my bag, not thinking much about it. And then when I got to my girlfriend's house and laid everything out on the table, and I was sort of in my hungover state staring at these jars, and I was like, I think this is a thing. This is super different. Imagine if we, forget the Hessian wrap that everybody's using and we forget the brown paper, and what about jars? This could be a thing. And we're excited about it, but it presented a whole heap of problems that we needed to solve, because if you're sending flowers out in a jar, it's another thing that's kind of fragile, that can break in transit. It needed to contain water to keep the flowers alive. So it's like everything in business, there's pros, there's cons. So we knew there was something in it, but it was actually quite hard to execute and make it happen.
What did you do?
Well, in the short term, because our volumes were so low, we actually just got around the problem because we were delivering the products ourselves. So it didn't matter how hard it was to transport these bloody jars, because ultimately they were going in the boot or the back seat of our cars. So we went to Bunnings and bought a whole heap they're called like orchid trays, but they're just basically like black plastic trays that hold like orchids or plant pots or whatever in transit.
Like a giant cup holder.
Like a giant cup holder. It's like a giant plastic cup holder with like 12 little things in it to carry 12 little jars. And so we went and bought a load of these giant plastic cup holders, and that's how we transported them for probably, I'd say, the first couple of years, until we had another kind of light bulb aha moment trying to figure out a way that we could send flowers through the mail. And at that point, we had to sort of deconstruct our whole product concept to really figure out how we could get flowers across Australia through mainstream postal networks.
So how did you do that?
In the first instance, it was less about I think the question was not how, but why were we even doing that, right? The scale bit was the reason. So at this stage, we were in Melbourne and Sydney, and because we were delivering the same day, we were restricted to delivering in the regions where we physically had a presence. We had very little cash flow in the business to scale. The business was breaking even and it was working, but we never got external investment. So we were we simply have not got the funds to open up warehouses and put teams in different locations across Australia. And we were in a board meeting one day with one of our advisors, and I made this flippant quip and said something like, wouldn't it just be so easy if we could just send flowers through the bloody mail? And I remember he kind of paused and sort of said to me, well, maybe you can. Have you thought about it? Go away and have a think about how you would do that. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe there's something in this. What I thought at the time was an example of the best packaging in the entire world. And I think for that, most people kind of would look towards Apple. Like the unboxing experience of a new Apple product is just phenomenal. It's so tactile. It's so perfectly engineered. And so I went and got myself one of my old iPhone boxes. I Googled packaging suppliers in Melbourne. I had a meeting with a cardboard manufacturer and I literally rocked up with the iPhone box, a jar of lovely flowers, and this sketch, which I had kind of mapped out in a Sharpie, which was like, I'm basically trying to create an iPhone box on a bigger scale that I can send flowers across Australia in.
I love that.
And so I worked with somebody his job title was boxologist. He's he's basically a cardboard engineer. I never knew that those things existed. The first problem to solve was like, okay, well, how do we engineer some type of epic packaging and unboxing experience that's going to keep the flowers and the glass safe, plus allow air circulation through the box to keep them healthy in transit. So that was kind of job number one. Job number two was like, how do we get rid of the water in the jar? Because clearly you cannot be sending water through the mail. We spoke to different experts around the world and landed working with a company over in Holland. Basically used one of their products which was foam based and keeps flowers hydrated during transit without the use of water. So there were like lots of different little problems we had to solve. But ultimately, from that one flippant comment in a board meeting and the challenge that advisor set, like, you know, less than 3 months later, we were testing sending flowers through the mail and we were the first businesses in Australia to do it. And now, you know, you look at a lot of floristry businesses who are doing exactly the same thing. And I think we kind of like really paved the way and shifted people's perspective of how you could get flowers across Australia.
One of the things that Daniel Flynn says, which I love, it's so powerful. It's like, but what if it worked? You know, to look at the problem and actually go, what if it works? What if we can fix it?
Yeah.
And to have that like naive confidence to be like, okay, I can do it. I'm the person that can make this happen.
I think so. I think there's a lot of people in the world who will focus on why something won't work, right? Or they will focus on the problem and not see the opportunity in a problem. The thing that like I think is wildly exciting and really kind of gives me that glint in my eye is when something seems so hard that other people are like, that's just too hard. That just won't work. To me, that's just like, it's so motivating.
What has been the shittiest moment in your business so far?
Honestly, I think it's a side of business that people don't talk about enough, because I think running a business and, you know, being an entrepreneur can be over glamorized, and actually it's not glamorous at all, and it's really, really hard. It's the path of most resistance. You are choosing the hardest possible path in terms of a career for yourself, that I believe, and based on my experience. So there's been so many shitty moments in Lovely, you know, from things like right at the beginning, getting our pricing strategy completely wrong, to just this sheer grind and grunt work of doing it all yourself, like getting up at 4 a.m. in the morning to go to the flower markets. Like, you know, it's long days, it's long hours. And if you haven't got a really clear purpose as to why you're doing it beyond just selling stuff, like I'm not a big fan of the idea of don't just sell stuff. It's got to be more than selling stuff, because if that's your motivation and your goal, eventually you're just going to run out of steam and energy. Our purpose was always, you know, to build this iconic brand that would become a household name and to make people's day. Right? So that kept us going, but just the pure grind of building a business is shitty. And that's without all of the really big stuff that can go wrong. Like we had one Valentine's Day, which is kind of like the grand final in the world of flowers, right? Like if you mess up Valentine's Day or Mother's Day, they're your two biggest sales periods of the year, and they're both a 24-hour period. So imagine like how quickly you have to scale your business up, but then back down again. We completely messed up this Valentine's Day, and we got all of our kind of like pick pack and operational kind of time motion bit wrong. Like we just didn't have enough resource to cope with the demand and the sales that were coming into the business. And I think, I can't remember exactly, but my gut feeling is we lost about 90K in a week, which when you're bootstrapping your own business, I mean, no business owner wants to lose 90K in a week. But for us, that was like, it was almost catastrophic. Like it was almost a case of like, let's just shut up shop and go and get another job, right? So that was really shitty. Not long after that, remember when we had the huge bushfires in Australia over Christmas and the start of the year, we physically couldn't get product out to people. So we were issuing lots of refunds because there were so many problems with logistics. We were losing even more money. We got kicked out of our warehouse. One of our warehouses in Melbourne, the landlord hadn't increased the rent for a series of years, unbeknownst to us because we were actually part of a co-working space back then. They wanted to increase our rent by threefold. We couldn't afford it. So suddenly we were homeless.
Did they shoot themselves in the foot because then they went into COVID and they couldn't fill the space?
Exactly right.
Our landlord, they tried to increase our rent by 20% and then we were like, same thing happens. See you later.
Yeah. But like so many really shit moments where you're just like, is this for real? Can another thing this big really go wrong? And you're just constantly like problem solving.
Treading water. Yeah.
But I think in all honesty, like, so there are things that went wrong with the business. The shittiest moment for me personally actually came ironically, and it's wild the way the world works like this, but the shittiest moment for me was actually post selling the business. Which is funny because I think it seems like to get an exit feels like the holy grail for most founders.
Did you have that as a goal, an exit?
Yeah, we always wanted to. It wasn't our only goal, but it was, like if we built something big enough that somebody wanted to acquire one day, then of course, like that's great. Like who
did you
wouldn't
go through
want
a
that
sale
outcome?
process or did you get like, did you pitch it out or did they reach out to you?
Both. So during COVID, our business was going absolutely gangbusters. We were like scaling like you wouldn't believe. So we were white knuckling it. We were growing by about 500%. It was like Lovely's moment in the sun.
Yeah.
Like there was never a better time. Like Lovely was invented for COVID.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was thinking when you went down for Mother's Day, that's probably a good lesson to have prepped you for that.
100%. So everything happens for a reason, right?
Yeah.
So when COVID happened, we had really kind of like dotted our I's and crossed our T's operationally. We knew how to scale this business. You know, the world goes into lockdown, loved ones are separated, nobody can see each other. Lovely's sales go absolutely through the roof. But not just that, at the time it coincided with us winning like a whole bunch of awards. We had a bit of a golden run. We were named in like Australia's top 10 coolest retailers. We were just
everywhere.
We were just everywhere, right? I could just feel it intuitively. I was like, something's going to happen. Like this is coming together. Like the growth's there, the momentum's there. Our commercials are outstanding. We're getting the PR. Our customers are loving us. And we got an inquiry from an overseas technology company who were looking to acquire a business in Australia. And I just knew that this was the start of an exit process. I didn't know necessarily that they were going to be the ones to acquire us, but we then took on formal advisors to help us manage that process with Limitless Technology Group, who in the end were the business that acquired us. But what we wanted to do was, if there was going to be interest in acquiring Lovely, we wanted to make sure that we were going broad enough to create enough competitive tension to really have conversations with multiple interested parties to get a really good handle on where our valuation should sit, not just simply sell to kind of, the first bidder. And so we did go through a formal process, but that was really kickstarted by interest that was kind of just inbound to us, which is an amazing position to be in. And then after a period of 12 months of going through due diligence, speaking to various interested parties, of whom there were many in the end, we did finally end up selling the business to Limitless Technology. But it was a really, really grueling 12-month period.
Yeah. That's incredible. Congratulations on the sale.
Thank you.
Getting all that money. Did they give you the happy? It sounds like it didn't because of what you said before. It wasn't what you expected.
There's this thing called having a destination mindset. And there's a difference between a destination mindset and a journey mindset. And a destination mindset is this idea that you believe that if you get to a certain destination or if you achieve a certain goal in life, and it might not be based on money. It might be like, if I marry this person or if I lose this much weight or whatever, but if I achieve this particular goal or destination, I will be happy. Versus a journey mindset, which is really just about enjoying the ride that you're on. No, believing that you'll probably get to the destination one day, but actually the goal isn't the destination in of itself. And so I think I was building Lovely over a sort of 10-year period with a real destination mindset. Like, when I have achieved this, when I have proven myself, when this business is big enough, when we get to an exit or when we get to international scale, I can relax. I will be happy. My job will be done and I'm going to go on holiday. Like, and life from there on in will be amazing. And if I just do all of these things, then I can relax and be happy. The reality is not such.
Yeah.
So I think what happened when I sold Lovely was, first of all, I was incredibly burnt out mentally and physically. I knew how I was feeling and I had expressed it to loved ones and my husband, but I hadn't really done anything about how burnt out I was feeling physically and psychologically. I would say things like, I just don't think I can do this anymore. Like, I'd express that I was burnt out. I'd express that I was feeling like I just couldn't cope with all of the things anymore. But I just kept going. I just kept pushing through. What happened after I sold Lovely, literally like weeks after it completed, I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning. My husband was upstairs at the time because he was sleeping with our 3 or 4-year-old, I can't remember how old Archie was at the time, who had a cold. And I woke up in the middle of the night and I got up to go to the bathroom and I thought I was having a heart attack.
Wow.
I literally had this cold, like ice cold feeling start like at the top of my head, go through my body like an electric shock. It was so bizarre. From my head to my toes, I got goosebumps all over my body. I started to get pins and needles. I started to lose consciousness and I felt like I couldn't breathe and I literally collapsed in a heap on the floor. And I managed to walk out of the bedroom to the bottom of the stairs to call up to my husband. And I remember calling him repeatedly. And he came to the top of the stairs and I said to him, "You have to call an ambulance. I'm having a heart attack. I think I'm going to die."
Oh my God.
And it was terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying. And so he did call an ambulance and I got taken to hospital and assessed. And I was basically told that I was in perfect health and that I should go home. What I didn't realize on that night was that was the start of what was going to be a really, really difficult 12 months for me, experiencing intense anxiety and panic attacks.
Wow.
And it was really, I believe, the build-up of working so hard over such a sustained period of time, putting myself under so much pressure, not listening to my body, not setting enough boundaries, letting some people treat me in ways which were wholly unacceptable. And I put up with it. And it was a massive lesson for me in actually taking care of yourself on the journey and enjoying, the ups and the downs and the ebbs and the flows and those everyday moments, everything. Because honestly, the following 12 months for me was utter hell. I had this mental health crisis. I could not drag myself out of this highly anxious state. I was doing all of the things that you're supposed to do. I was talking to professionals. I was walking. I was doing yoga twice a day. I was eating healthy. I quit drinking alcohol. I gave up caffeine. And there was literally nothing I could do in my power to stop myself feeling the way I was feeling. I was waking up every single night at 4 a.m. on the dot, feeling like there was a tiger in the room about to kill me. It was so intense, right? And you cannot believe, and I am this capable, resilient person that can cope.
Were you
with
just
stuff.
shocked that
I was shocked.
You thought you were fine?
I was shocked and it felt so out of control. And I just, it was really hard not feeling safe in your own body and feeling so out of control because you can't get on top of this anxiety and this panic. And so that was a real lesson to me because honestly, in that moment, it got so bad. I would have given every single cent that I had in my bank account back. I'd have gone, You know what, have it all, take it all. I don't care about the money. I just want to feel okay. I want to be able to just enjoy my life with my kids and my husband.
What did you do? How did it end?
So we'd sold Lovely. The plan had always been to relocate to the UK for 6 months because, you know, during COVID, there was a period there where I didn't see any of my family for 2 years. Like they couldn't travel here. I couldn't travel there. I'd had my second child. They couldn't meet Sky.
Yeah.
So for me, I always had in my head, when we exit the business, I just want to be able to spend 6 months with my family. So we did that. We relocated overseas. And actually, it was the best place I could have been, surrounded by loved ones when I was going through this crazy mental health crisis. I sought professional help. I went to see a psychiatrist at the Priory, you know, literally booked myself in to go and see this guy at the Priory, which was 10 minutes from where I'm staying. And the Priory is quite a sort of high profile rehab destination for people with lots of either different mental health problems or addiction problems or whatever. And I booked myself in with this psychiatrist and I explained everything that was going on. I said, I'm doing all of the right things and I've been feeling this for like 6 to 9 months and nothing's working. And so I did go down the route of getting an official diagnosis of severe generalized anxiety panic disorder. And I went on anxiety medication to just help me break the cycle and give me that extra support and scaffolding I needed to kind of get myself back into a good place. But it really did take that. Like it took me 12 months of pure focus, dedicated effort to get myself feeling good again. And it was really, really frightening.
I guess now that you asked, you're diving right back in with new businesses. Like, I guess, what are the things you're going to do differently?
It's a great question. People keep asking me all the time, are you sure? You know that like really bad experience you had? Do you think it's a good idea? And look, I think I was the first to blame the business when all of this happened. I was like, I am never running a business again. But actually what I realized, and you know, I've done a lot of unpacking of all of the things since this happened. It wasn't building the business. Actually building the business and being a business owner fits with all of my personal values.
Was it a vehicle for putting up with crap?
I put up with so much crap that I should not have put up with.
Like what?
I don't want to get into the who or the what of it, but it made me realize that like I have lived a life with not many personal boundaries. I'm a classic people pleaser and I need to be really careful of my people pleasing trait because it means most of the time I put other people's needs above my own. And it's really taught me to put up some guardrails about the people I surround myself with, the energy I surround myself with. But actually, the building the business bit is the thing that I love for. And I think it's the thing that I feel like it's what I'm supposed to be doing. I love, in terms of my personal values, freedom is my number one. Like it's up there. And I don't just mean freedom to like travel. I mean freedom of thought, freedom of having an opinion, freedom of being able to make decisions, freedom of being able to do things the way that you want to do them. Creativity for me, courage. Like these things it's like the startup ecosystem is the perfect playground.
Yeah, absolutely.
For these attributes.
And like why throw out the baby with the bathwater? Business isn't, if you know it isn't the problem.
Yeah.
So tell me about these new businesses because they sound really exciting.
Oh, I'm really excited about them. I never thought I'd end up in the beauty space. There's a trend in my life. I often end up doing things that I say I will never do.
Yeah.
And beauty is fun. It's a great space to play in. So I, upon leaving Lovely, jumped into a business called Buff Nail Studios. Now, I didn't found Buff Nail Studios, but I've kind of got a fairly long relationship with the founding team in the capacity of being an advisor to the business. And then I jumped in as their first investor. And now I'm more of a partner in the business. So I've been helping Buff scale. They are creating a elevated nail studio experience like Australia simply hasn't seen before. Not just the aesthetics and the beauty of the in-studio experience, but the caliber of the nail technicians, the quality of the products. We have a hygiene lab, which is dedicated to making sure all of the products and equipment that they use have hospital grade sterilization. Like the cleanliness standards in the nail industry are embarrassing. It is just like something that's just unregulated. We're really trying to change that as a category for the nail studio industry. So we've got 5 studios at the moment in Melbourne. We'll be coming to Sydney soon. And then my next baby, which I'm going to be putting my all into, which we launched in the first quarter of 2025, is actually a premium hair color product that you can use at home that allows you to cover your roots and regrowth quickly with professional grade products. It's really kind of mimicking that salon experience. So it's not just about hair color, it's about the health of your hair, it's about nourishment, it's about hydration, it's about shine. And I think there's a pretty gaping hole in the market for a product that women can use to really revolutionize their hair color routine and ritual, right?
Is it kind of like a gap right now? Because I don't really understand the space that well, but is it just your like kind of like L'Oreal Wellers in your Woolies shelf versus like going into a salon?
Exactly right. So right now, and I've been dealing with like grey regrowth since my mid-30s, right? And interestingly, on average, people start getting their first greys around the age of 33. So this isn't really like an old people's problem. It's kind of like you're pretty young when you first start dealing with grey hair, or most people are if you're brunette. And so, yeah, you can either hit the grocery store and you can buy a pretty cheap and pretty toxic product off the shelf as you're buying your milk, bananas and bread, which isn't a particularly aspirational feel-good experience. Or you can hit up the salon and you can invest 3 hours of your time and hundreds of dollars of your money. And that's fine if you're going to the salon every couple of months or twice a year and it feels like a really feel-good me-time experience. But let me tell you, when you are dealing with regrowth and greys and you are on the hamster wheel of needing your hair coloured every 3 weeks, you do not have the time. Even if you have the money, you do not have the time to go and sit in that salon for hours on end every 3 weeks. So there is an opportunity to really enhance the lives of women and men who are constantly dealing with this kind of regrowth and give them just a way more convenient, way more premium experience. It's actually full of great ingredients. We focused a lot on pulling a lot of the toxic ingredients out of the hair color we're producing, and I cannot wait to get it into market.
That is so exciting. That sounds amazing. I love an idea where we're both with the nail salon as well. You're like, why hasn't this been done already? Because that's, it shows what a good idea it is.
I think so. I hope so.
Amazing. Right back into the thick of it.
I'm back into the thick of it. Yeah. It's my happy place.
Love that.
All right. So I feel like this is probably a good time, Jane, for us to go into our new business advice segment.
Yeah, so exciting.
So we've started this thing where Jane's putting it out on her socials. Business advice, I guess, like pretty simple. Like you guys write in and our guest will give you some advice. We are going to figure out a better way to do this.
Yeah.
I believe we're going to get a form of some sort.
I think a form would be good because then we have to... There's been so many DMs and I don't have time to read all and reply to all the DMs. Totally. I'm so sorry. We're going to put on a form. It's going to be in the show notes. And we're looking probably for more specifically like, this is my business. This is the problem. Not just like, how do you do this?
Yeah, how do you scale?
Nothing that ChatGPT can answer for you.
I believe it's a brand, not a brand, a cheese shop that you actually love.
Yeah, it actually is. So, and it's perfect for Hannah to come comment on, in the gifting space. So yeah,
the handle is Cheese Celebration. It's in Roselle, I believe. Question is, hi Jane and Hannah, this is Ramona. My business is Cheese Celebration. We specialize in how do you say that word?
Artisanal
cheese, gourmet products, cheese hampers and grazing platters. We have a shop in Roselle and also sell online. Our online store isn't getting enough traction and we're not growing as much as we're hoping for. People love cheese, but what stops them from buying from us? I like that.
Interesting.
Good one.
So, well, I'm really interested to hear, like, how do you think, being in the gifting space, like, how do they get to that next level?
It's a good one because it's gifting, but it's also a good one because I bloody love cheese.
Yes.
I eat a lot of cheese. There's a whole bunch of people out there who love cheese. There's a whole bunch of people who are selling cheese, and very similar to the flower category, right? We all love flowers, and there's a lot of people selling flowers. So the business has to be more than just about the cheese or the flowers.
Exactly, like the jars for
like
Lovely.
The jars
That's
for
how
Lovely,
I remember
right.
it.
If you zoom out from the jars, what we're really talking about is brand and the power of brand and the importance of brand. And I've said this, like my team laugh at me at Lovely because I say over and over again, like brand is everything. Without the brand, we are literally delivering flowers in a box. Like we're just flowers in a box.
Yeah.
Brand is everything. Like what do we stand for? What's our purpose? What's our personality? What do we do differently? So I'd be really thinking about what does this business stand for outside of selling cheese? What's their thing? What's their personality? What's their vibe? What makes them different? Are they importing cheese from places that other people aren't? Like, is there a uniqueness to the product they're selling? Is there a uniqueness to their in-store environment? Like, what do they want to be famous for outside of cheese?
How can you make this a destination cheese? I think anyone local loves this place. but how can you make people want to travel there? Like, what is it? You get something new from France every month. Like, they probably do. Like, actually, you might actually already.
How are you going to create a queue around the corner? That should be the thing that they're thinking about, is like, how are we going to
make a queue around the corner?
How are we going to make a queue around the corner? Like, how do we get people to line up for 45 minutes on a Saturday morning?
And
because
people
actually
love queues. People see, and literally, you give out a free piece of cheese, you get that queue around the corner, you put it on social media, all of a sudden, everyone else wants to join that queue.
It's so true. A crowd draws a crowd.
Yeah.
My husband always says that, and it's so true. Like, how do you create that crowd outside the front of your store?
Yeah.
So maybe it is hosting specific events, tasting sessions.
Yeah.
Maybe it's...
You host an event and just make people wait outside for a little bit. Or you have a line party.
Or you're doing a collaboration with somebody.
A collaboration.
Like, cheese and wine or whatever it is, but you bring together something that is a unique experience that they're not going to be able to go to the cheese shop down the road for. So it is those unique elements that really make you stand out.
So jumping on their socials, I love that Ramona makes so much content, like that she is talking about the cheese, which is great, because I think it's so hard sometimes when the founder doesn't want to talk about their products or be the face of it. You can't make them. So the fact that she loves doing it is great. But then the content is very much like, we had this cheese in, and then we had this cheese in. Like, it's very, I don't think it's salesy, but it's sales focused.
Yeah.
As opposed to making it more about inspiration, value, entertainment, or education. You're not serving your cheese platter right. This is how you should do it. You know, there's so many like grazing platter businesses where the focus is, how do you make a grazing platter?
Yeah.
Even though they sell platters, they're teaching you how to do it yourself. Because often people follow it because they like watching it. They're not necessarily going to do it, or they don't always have the time. But then you're the first go-to. Just because you're giving away that free education on how to do it, you're then actually getting more followers and building a community. And then also the entertainment factor, right? I think it's just the content right now. This is what we have. It's a bit like a catalog as opposed to social media and entertainment.
I think that from a consumer point of view, I love cheese. I love cheese so much, but I'll just buy any cheese as well. I know some people are really like cheese connoisseurs, or however you say that word.
Artisanal.
Some people are really into their cheeses, but I wouldn't look like, I look at the page and it's great. Like you said, we've got this new one. I just want it to taste nice, and I want to see what pairs good with which, like, if that makes sense. More like like you said, like education, like make it more of an experience.
This cheese and this wine, this cheese and this. And like also, you know, when there's like, you get cheeses and there's like pears, sultanas, quince, and like truffle honey, like what actually goes with what? I actually don't know. I'm just like, I just mix it all up. Exactly.
Yeah.
And also there's one that was like, hey guys, we just got this. Are you cutting your cheese with the right knife? You could also be more clickbaity, like 90% of people don't cut cheese with the right knife, and this is what happens. You hurt the cheese. I don't know.
It could be really fun. I feel like it's like playing into just like clickbaity stuff for sure. That would be, exactly.
How much of your marketing do you do like gifting and digital marketing? Is digital marketing still your biggest driver?
Yeah, digital marketing is a huge driver for the business, but equally so is the brand awareness and the brand building part. Like, I think that over the long term, all of the data and research shows that brand building is the most powerful way to drive sales in the long term. There are heaps of tactical things and digital marketing things you do to drive sales today. But in terms of like really growing your market share and defending your market share, it's all about brand. She's doing lots of the right things. It's awesome that she's putting her face as the founder right there in the social feed, getting lots of behind the scenes. I think maybe she could do with thinking about understanding who her audience really is, because cheese lovers are very broad. You know, there's cheese lovers who are happy to pop down to the local grocery store and pick up whatever's on sale. And then there's cheese lovers
that take it really
cheese lovers
seriously.
Really, you know, who will go out of their way on a Saturday morning to go to a specific store because they sell a specific cheese. So I think there's also a case of like trying to really understand who your audience is and creating content specifically for them.
Who are the people that will
super
travel?
Broad.
And like destination, totally.
You know, like will travel for cheese. Like where are the will travel for cheese people? And where are the
your persona, your customer persona.
Yeah, will travel for cheese. That's our customer.
Her name is Jess, and she will travel for cheese.
And we're gonna make will travel for cheese t-shirts, and we're gonna give them to our most local customer, most loyal customers.
Here we go.
Like I think the
will
whole
travel for cheese tote bags. Start a support group, which is a fan club for your own page.
There you go.
This is great.
Yes.
This is it. This is the thing.
There you go. Okay. And then just a few technical things that I found that I wanted to raise is that in her Linktree bio at the top, it's still a Mother's Day link.
Yeah.
So it's like that that's a waste of real estate. Real estate, the top of your Linktree in your bio of your socials is the most important real estate. So that can't be something from 5 months ago. So get rid of that. There's also a Mother's Day hamper at the top of your VM, so visual merchandising on your website for your products. Get rid of that, because then that makes the whole website, you go, oh, is this dated? It's just like,
they're not up and running anymore.
Like what if I put an order in and I don't get a product? So you have to get rid of that to make your website look current, especially when you're selling something like cheese, which can date, obviously. And then another thing is, if you just do a quick Google search, then they came up first on Google Shopping, which is fantastic.
Amazing.
But they were the most expensive. Now, so you put in more of a fighter product, so something more affordable, so that when you're looking at all the other products in Google Shopping, you're only more expensive by like $10, $20. But what will make someone click that product? Put in like a smaller package, get people onto your website, you upsell them with an upsize. So you draw them in with the small box, that still looks nice. And then you can upsell the medium large, because that's, because you're offering better value for the bigger sizes. And then one final thing.
Love the logistic.
Yeah. So I love how they have the images. If you look at some of their competitors, there's no image when you Google. So that looks amazing. But the text just has a list of products. That's where you sell your brand. You sell the dream. So sorry, everyone who's listening. This is still a podcast, but we're on YouTube. We're going to put this on YouTube so you guys can watch this properly. But basically, when you Google, the organic Google, I'm talking about that, the images and the text that comes up when you Google your products.
Love it.
All important. Anyway, yay. We're helping.
So we're going to start doing this all the time. So stay tuned.
Oh, we need a name for this segment. So if anyone thinks of an idea.
Some ideas, please.
Send them through. Okay. And the latest in business news. Have you seen the whole Crumbl fiasco?
Everybody's seen the latest Crumbl fiasco.
Okay, so basically TLDR is that like Crumbl had that pop-up store. Crumbl Cookies is huge in the US, and then they opened this pop-up store in Australia. Everyone queued, paid $17 for a cookie. It sold out, and it turns out these fans basically packed all the cookies into a suitcase and like imported via like a flight to Australia, and then everyone got stale cookies. But the latest is that apparently Crumbl is coming to Australia.
So now we're just thinking, is this just guerrilla marketing in its...
Look, if it's guerrilla marketing, I love it.
I love it.
I love it.
If this is actually like a strategic move from Crumbl over in the US,
this is great.
This is so smart, so simple, so clever. Massive props to them. If that's what they're doing, I love it.
Yeah,
I will queue up and I will pay $17 for your cookie because it's just so clever. However, if this is not a strategic move by Crumbl and this is a genuine kind of like, deception of customers, and some people have kind of gone out there, pretended to be Crumbl and they're not. Crazy move.
Mental.
Like crazy move.
The audacity.
And that's the thing, right? Like that is a different type of freaky audacity. That is like crossing a line that should not be crossed. As soon as you are actually deceiving customers, like not cool, guys.
Yeah.
Like you just can't, trademark infringements.
And then also the brand damage for the sale cookies.
So let's hope, I would love this to be a strategic move by Crumbl.
Okay, I am thinking if it was a genuine move by Crumbl Cookies, would they actually have made the cookies stale?
Were they really stale, or are we assuming they're stale because they were imported?
Well, I've seen on TikTok, and TikTok,
actual people.
TikTok doesn't lie.
Yeah, exactly. That is a source of truth.
That they were stale.
Okay.
Or did the Crumbl cookie pop-up actually then validate a business case for the US company? It just got deeper.
Yeah, there's so many layers to this.
This is a rabbit hole. There's so many layers to this.
Yeah.
But regardless of what's true or what's not true, the fact that we're all talking about this and giving it so much airtime can only be an amazing thing for the real Crumbl over in the US.
Yeah.
And hopefully massive lesson learned for the chumps that did it here if it's not a real if they were impersonating them, like, don't do that again.
I can't wait for the cookies to come here.
And they should come out and, like, I feel like they need to do something though.
We need to get them on the podcast.
Come on the podcast. Oh, Crumbl should actually give them a job. They've got hustle.
Exactly.
But, like,
naughty.
don't do that. Don't be naughty. Okay, it's time for
dun dun dun. 2 truths and a lie. And I'm really good at this game. So
just who am I looking at?
Okay, look at me.
I'm looking at you. Am I looking at you?
Look at
or am I
Jane,
looking
and
at Jane?
I'm gonna pick up on.
Okay.
We've got 20 cameras here. We don't know what's going. We're just rolling with
cool.
it.
And I'll just roll with it, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So I once went to a work Christmas party and kissed my boss. I once got stuck in an elevator with Robbie Williams. And I went on a yoga retreat and spent an entire day naked with 20 other women.
Okay, they all seem really believable.
Yeah, and you said them with conviction as well.
Oh my God, I love that you think they all sound really believable.
They're just so specific.
Well, just the Robbie Williams thing. It's just because, you know, you're doing it with the posh Emily Blunt accent. It sounds more believable.
Yeah, that's true.
So the yoga retreat seems, okay, kissing your boss on Christmas. I feel like, you know what it's giving me? It's because you're giving me that vibe of that chick from Love Actually who likes Hugh Grant. That English, it's an English accent. It's throwing me way off.
I feel like that's the lie.
Because it's the most likely. Okay, yes, go.
It's true.
Oh,
I married him.
Mix. Oh, right. Wait, he's in advertising.
He's in advertising. He was my boss in advertising.
The lie is the Robbie Williams.
Yoga.
Oh, God, this is so good. It's down the middle. It's down the middle. Robbie Williams is the lie.
Oh,
yeah.
Sadly, I wish it were true. I'd love to have been caught in an elevator with Robbie Williams.
Oh my God. So I went to his concert with like in a box suite, which was really nice. So I couldn't really see properly. I'm really blind. But also like I just feel like it's just so different to like when we would have loved him when we were younger. Because half of his jokes were about being like old and out of energy. Like he kind of did it with charisma. He's got some riz still left, but like it was just a bit like, just kept referring to like, oh man, I'm tired. Like, it's like, you know, like, yeah.
Relatable.
Anyway, relatable. So anyway, thank you so much for, you know, sharing so much with us today. I feel like
it's such a pleasure.
Yes. And we're going to dinner tonight.
We are.
We're having, you know, just guys, I'm so excited because we have a little, podcast gang, I like to claim the link because we've got Sam from the Skin Bar and she's opened 9 do you know,
I haven't met her. I feel like we're going to have a lot in common.
9 skin clinics in the last 4 years. And then we've also got Anita from Selling the Online Hero Packaging who's just released her new book, which is just like flying. And you met her through Amex then?
I did, yeah.
Yeah. And so it's a little, I mean, we don't have to be a podcast girl, Angela, and claim it, but like kind of cool because we're on a podcast. But we're going to have so much fun. I can't wait.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Thank you. And so before you leave, I would love to hear the best piece of advice that you've ever received.
Do what scares you. And it's really about just pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. And I followed that advice pretty religiously, particularly in my career, and it's never let me down.
Love that. That should be like, we should get like a neon light.
Maybe we can get a deal on the We'll Travel for Cheese and do what scares you t-shirts.
Tote bags. Next business. I actually saw a TikTok today for a guy with a coffee shop. He was like, these are the 4 things I've learned about having a coffee shop. And the first one was he makes more on the merch than the coffee.
Yeah. Maybe there's something in this. Right, I'm launching t-shirts and I'm selling them. Follow me on Insta.
Yeah.
At Hannah Spilva. Buy a t-shirt. We'll travel for cheese.
We'll travel for cheese.
Do what scares you. Coming to you.
Yeah.
Audacity.
Or Audacity. Give me a week.
Yeah.
Give me a week.
Oh my
I'm
God.
launching a t-shirt business.
You
guys
should
can
then
talk
have
about
like
this tonight.
some kind of wellness group thing called the Audacity Club.
Oh my God, too many good
Oh.
ideas, and we don't want anyone
Too
to
many
steal them.
ideas.
So let's wrap that up.
Thank you so much. All right, see you guys. Bye.